Hello again. This is a new video about a 1921 Leyland G double-decker bus called the Todmorden No.14, which was restored by Mike Sutcliffe between 1981 and 1984, almost 40 years ago. The Todmorden was the first Leyland bus Mike restored, and he went on to restore a further 9 buses, 3 of which are now located at the Shuttleworth Collection near Biggleswade. I'll now hand you over to Mike, who talks about the Todmorden and the work involved in restoring it.
Hello, I'm Mike Sutcliffe, and I've restored a number of very early buses over the years. In fact, I've done 10 altogether, all of which have started off from an absolutely dreadful state, and I've restored them to virtually as new condition. And this is the first Leyland that I did. This was the second restoration, and I found the body of it inside a hedge near Brentwood in Essex, where it had stood since the 1920s. It was in a terribly derelict condition, with trees growing through it, but I found that it came from the town where all my relations come from, Todmorden in Yorkshire, and so decided I must rescue it. I actually found it inside the hedge about 2 weeks before I was moving house to Wiltshire, and I rallied round with the neighbours to come and help me actually lift it bodily into a removal lorry. So we had 2 removal lorries, one for the house furniture and one for the bus body. So having got the body, I needed to find the chassis, which was the right model, and it's very difficult to find a complete vehicle in those days. This was about 1970s, so it's a while ago. But I did find the remains of a vehicle in a scrapyard in Sussex, where the engine had been in a lake since 1938. But there was a gearbox and other wheels, axles, no chassis frame because the scrap man had chopped up the chassis, taken the chassis for a farm trailer. But through word of mouth, I got to hear of other vehicle bits and managed to find enough bits of the right model to put it together and to restore it. So the restoration started in 1981 and finished in 1984 when I took it on the London to Brighton run. So this has been restored now for 40 years, and still has the original paintwork that I put on it. The body was in a pretty bad state, so I had to repair that and partly new frame. I'd managed to find photographs of what it looked like when it was new. No drawings existed or anything like that, but gradually went from it was like a sort of detective work to find out what colour it was and which bits go where. But it all came together, and we took it to Brighton. Hadn't been anywhere on the road, and we drove it all the way to Brighton and back. So having got a circle of friends who were helping me, usually 2 people every Saturday, having nearly finished this, I found another one in Norfolk, the Chocolate Express bus, which was a London Pirate bus. That was the next one to be restored, and also the Sharrow bus, which is now at Shuttleworth. I found the body of that, which had been used as a garden shed behind a house, and an old lady lived in the house, and she said, "Oh, you can have that if you're going to make it go again," which was brilliant, except that she didn't want to part with it just yet. And every time I contacted her, "Oh, yes, I'm not quite ready yet." But eventually someone phoned me up and said, "Oh, you know that house, it's up for sale." So next day I went up to Earthlingborough in Northamptonshire and found the new people had moved in, and I told them the story about the bus and how valuable it would be to restore it and have it running again. They said, "Oh, we're going to set fire to it next weekend." So I said, "Well, could I take it?" "Oh, it must be worth a lot of money." It all got a bit silly then, as things do. Anyway, in the end, I swapped it for a caravan, which I paid £100 for, and we went and rescued it. Unfortunately, in looking for bits for the Todmorden G here, I'd got another chassis. In fact, I've probably got 2 or 3 spare ones, and so I had enough to make the Shuttleworth go. And I suppose from then onwards, it sort of went from bad to worse. I ended up with bringing home the remains of 42 very elderly Leylands, and restoring 10. I parted with a few for restoration, dismantled a number to get the bits that I needed. And the last of the really early Leylands on solid tyres, I finished in 2006. So after that, I sort of backpedaled a little bit, and the next one was a really modern one, a 1934 Leyland Tiger with a diesel engine.
So I'm Ricky Sutcliffe, Mike Sutcliffe's son. I also have the bug for the vehicles, and I've also been roped into starting this one. Hi. All right. Yeah.
Ignition switch is on.
Retarded.
Yes.
Give the carburetor a tickle. They only like it when there's a lot of fuel in the carb. Okay. I've just pressed the choke in a bit there. You'll notice that if it comes out, it doesn't run as well. If I push it right in, it won't run as well. So I'm just finding the right location. There she goes.
Okay, looking at the controls of the bus, we've got here underneath the steering wheel, you've got a hand throttle, so you can actually drive it with the accelerator by hand or by foot. And this lever here is the advance and retard lever. So you always retard it, which is going down to the bottom to start it, so that it doesn't kick back when you swing it. And then as soon as it's going, you advance it up to the top. And never forget, when you stop it, to put it back to retard. Otherwise someone could get a broken arm when they swing it. The pedals, you've got the clutch and the brake. That's the foot brake. And the accelerator's over here. Sometimes you get the accelerator in the middle in the earlier ones. But the brake is the emergency brake. That is not the driving brake. You only use that going down very steep hills with a big load on. The driving brake is what you'd normally call the handbrake, which is here, which is a push-on handbrake. And then this is the gear quadrant, where you've got a gate to operate 4 forward speeds and 1 reverse. And to get into reverse, you have to pull the lever and you go through first and down here into reverse. So that's about it with the driving controls. Of course, there's the horn. This is one of the side lamps, which is an oil lamp, and they used to run on paraffin, But when this vehicle was built, they were just converting things to electrics. So this is a paraffin lamp, but with a light bulb in it and the wire to it here. So we don't have to light it up. The headlamps are electric, and those are the only electrical parts of it apart from the magneto. And the battery, the conventional battery, is in a box underneath the bodywork. And there's a dynamo which is down here, which is run by a belt. It's not connected up with a belt at the moment. That would have a whittle belt on it, and it's driven off another pulley at the back of the flywheel. When I found this body, it was in a terrible state, but the thing that really sort of persuaded me that I ought to save it was this bulkhead, which is made out of an ash frame, or parts of oak and mahogany panels, and that was all. It was raining the day that I went to see it, and of course it was all shiny and all the grain showed, so I thought I've got to have that. Also this yellow hammered glass, so that's what persuaded me to that it was worth restoring. All the ceiling is original. A lot of the pillars we've had to replace because they tend to rot at the bottom of the glass, and there was no glass in it when I found it, and the panels had rotted away. So there's quite a lot of new material in it, but obviously we've kept as much as possible of the original. I couldn't get this type of yellow hammered glass, wasn't made anymore, but I managed to find a house with a conservatory with coloured glass in, and these two pieces here came from that conservatory. They're not quite right, but they do match quite nicely. When I found the body, there was absolutely nothing of the top deck here at all, but I dug around the sides of it in the soil and found all sorts of things, like this lamp here. There were enough bits of the seats to know the profile of the seat, and I could actually copy those perfectly. The same with the handrails. So all the uprights, the steel uprights, are original. They'd all fallen off and were in the undergrowth. So I was able to rebuild it to exactly what it was like when new.
In conclusion, I would like to thank Mike and Ricky for taking the time to talk about the Todmorden bus. And if you would like to see the bus, it will be displayed at Showbus 2025, which is being held at the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre. The Shuttleworth Collection of Leyland buses, restored by Mike Sutcliffe, can be seen at the Shuttleworth Collection near Biggleswade. And during the collection shows throughout the summer, rides on the buses are offered.